So I'm just going to ask a few questions, both of Professor and of Keith, and then I'll open it up to the floor if you guys have any contributions you want to make. Prof, in talking about that book, you spoke of the fact that in many places it mimicked your experiences of Nigeria, and also said it gave you insights that you think would be useful to anybody really seeking to engage corporate Nigeria. So my first question really is, was there anything you read that came as a surprise to you? And this is especially because you yourself, you've written about Nigeria for many years. You, as a writer, you're very observant. You have insights that most people don't have, and which they sort of rely on your books to get. So was there anything that surprised you, that came across as unexpected or new in that book?
Okay. I shall answer this one question. For me, it's the author who should be asked questions today. But all right, I shall answer that.
Thank you, sir.
No, absolutely nothing. As I said, it's something which I could have embarked upon myself, iterating my own experience, paralleled so uncannily by his. Even the episode which he recounted, when this enforcer came and offered him options, is paralleled. Even I had similar episode. In my case, in fact, it was. In this case, it was physical violence. In Kate's case, in my case, it was fetish violence. I had a strange encounter when somebody came to me during preparations of Koja, I think it was Koja, and said he had been. He said his father, his uncle. I beg your pardon. His uncle was a juju man. And his uncle learned that he knew me and that he was himself involved in the preparations of the cultural events for Koja Games. And that people had come to him, that is his uncle, the fetish man, to ask him to put me under, not physically, to nobble me psychically, to render me completely useless. And he said that his uncle would like to meet me and so that we can talk how he can counter or what, whether he should take the brief or not. And I told him, I said, well, your uncle is a professional. I said, so tell him he should exercise his profession, his professional judgment and his skills. And maybe it is an opportunity in a lifetime for him to try out his skills on a writer. The Nobel thing was not involved at the time, so just a writer, simple. And so please tell him I'm not coming to see him, but that he knows my home. He can come and see me, and I will entertain him, and I will show him what I have in my house. And then he can take his decision which side he wants to be on. And that was the last of that. So you can see, the difference is only the actual instrument which was proposed to nobble me and make me to carry the will. So nothing, absolutely nothing surprised me in that book. But what surprised me was his candor. He named names unstintingly. Now, I've never been able to bring myself to do that. I've always had the consideration, I don't want to destroy this person. I just want him to stop. I just want to counter whatever he's doing. I just want to dismiss him, as I did on occasion, and in some cases even made the mistake of rehabilitating him. That was in the road safety. I paid dearly for it. I'm still paying till tomorrow. I'm still having to counter his lies all over the place, all the way back. So this thing, people don't understand when some of us talk about corruption. They think it's just some kind of glancing encounter. No, this has been one life struggle, which has been the demand which has been made on our energy, our psyche, and the sacrifices we made. I see it all captured so marvelously in this book. And so there's nothing surprising, just the candor, the courage of writing it.
And I'll come back to you just very quickly in a short while to talk about that lifelong struggle and what that means in relation to this particular book. But the Prof raised an issue here about your candor and your willingness to name names and actually put down details that most people would instinctively pull away from doing. Why? Why did you decide that in writing this book you had to go all the way?
Well, I think it was a constant battle all the way along, and trust me, I didn't go all the way.
You held back something.
I did. I had, my lines. I mean, just the story in Abba, for example. And, I've referred to, there's times you have to, I mean, everybody here is a businessman, and in the book I've said, if your house is burning down and the fire brigade will not come unless you make them a payment, you are going to pay them. And, throughout that career, there's been crises that you're going to have to make some payments. And certainly some of the people in that book, I know, were afraid that I might name the police that we had to pay to come out, or the firemen to come and put out the fire, metaphorically. So there are times that I definitely pulled back. But overall, I think it's, if you're, there's too many of these kind of memoirs, for want of a better word, where people don't. And I think if you're going to try and be honest about it, then you have to say the truth.
Okay, so but in terms of, and because, the damage that corruption is doing to this country is so huge, and we see the decay that has taken place over the years and is continuing to take place, listening to someone like you talk about business people who are sort of forced to do things, you almost present them as victims, almost as if they have no choice in taking the decision to engage with corruption, to pay bribe, and to do the right things. And for people who are sort of looking to fundamentally alter the way things are done in this country, that doesn't seem like a very strong message to send out. It's almost as if, well, there's nothing we can do, and therefore we have to do this.
Well, I think that's a very genuine challenge. I mean, I tried to express, for example, I think I specifically said that a lot of the engagement with culture was to avoid having to do that there were other ways than facilitating payments, that, in a lot of times, by spending the time to go to the weddings and funerals, family funerals and naming ceremonies of DGs of the organisations who we had to get, who would be the typical ones that would shut down your factory unless you paid something. But by building those relationships, at least I was in a position then to go and see them and achieve our company objectives without making payments. But it is, as someone who loves Nigeria, it's very difficult. You can't write some Panglossian, like, there's government-sponsored videos going out every day about why we should believe in Nigeria, and they love they show part of the Nigeria I love, but there's that darker side too. So unless you write about it truthfully, and I tried to express that it is a constant battle to get that balance. And, I'm not sure I always got it right.
Okay, thank you. Prof, a last question before we go to the audience.
That's the offer.
Just a general thing. I mean, often...
One little one, Prof.
Yeah, I mean corporate Nigeria tends to generally be shrouded in mystery, unlike, say, political Nigeria. And so most Nigerians are fully aware of some of the dysfunction that takes place in government. And many times people tout corporate Nigeria as an example of if we could do things the way they do it in the private sector, then, things would get better. And then you get a book like this, which kind of suggests that actually the private sector is as rotten as the public sector, or at least they are sort of two sides of, very similar and two sides of the same coin. And so for people like you that have sort of spent a lifetime, like you said, a lifetime fighting corruption, looking at the decay in the country, what gives us hope? I mean, how are we going to get around these major issues that we are facing as a people?
Why don't we, at this stage, have somebody, this man sitting here who published the book anyway, let's get...
He said he's not answering questions.
No, I really am...
Just the last one and then...
Yeah. Well, we perhaps need a greater variety of models. I think this is the problem, that we tend to have just a line, a line of an activist, a single activist image, and we need to vary it a lot. For instance, how many people know that within business there are actually some worthy role models, examples, whose conduct in business can serve as a kind of template for other forms of activity, including cultural activities, including teaching, academia. I was at this event very briefly, the Celebration event a couple of days ago. Very briefly, I just appeared there. Unfortunately, I'd left by the time I had to leave early. But I learned later that, there was this BBC sting operation, sex for admission, marks, etc. And I understand that somebody in one of the speeches,
Professor Oyebode.
Oyebode, yes. I only learned about that later on. I was shocked that somebody in the academic field would try to trivialize an issue of that nature. Now, please understand me. I'm not saying that the accused was guilty or innocent, no. But if what I understand, if it's true, how Professor Oyebode phrased it, how he turned
true.
You were there, yes.
Yes.
A dismissive attitude. I found that appalling. And this does not, for me, set the kind of example we're talking about. It provokes legitimately, understandably, the kind of question that you ask, that where does hope lie? Where do we seek a kind of redemptive, constant value, which we can attribute, let's say, even to a class, a group of people, a profession, not just an individual. So it's very depressing. I agree with you, but I think everybody just have to work things out for themselves. Fortunately, we have global icons. We can reach outside, look at individuals like Nelson Mandela, for instance. Think of late people again, like Julius Nyerere, who also had his faults, who was also a victim of power, which we always, the power syndrome, misused in many ways. But at least there are examples like that all over the world in various fields, and people should stop thinking only Nigeria will provide it, because some of us are tired, very exhausted. I've said it again and again, I repeat it. Anybody who's looking towards me to lead any charge will wait for a very long time. You have to provide me not just a wheelchair, but an electric wheelchair, air-conditioned, tear gas proof, bulletproof, with a portable fridge, and then I'll come with you. Outside of that, please, we also have among the young generation some really marvelous individuals. Study them, and when they come out to contest election, no matter on what level, please, for a change, for God's sake, take a chance on some of them and stop recycling the old brigade from whichever side.